Okay, so I'm getting ready to flatten my table. I don't know if you can see it, but I have marked up a whole bunch of pencil lines all over the surface there. See all the scribbles? And right now, I'm running it without the router running, with the bit way up, just to make sure the code I wrote works fine. I wrote a 50 or so line program. The bit that I'm going to use is 1.25 inches wide, and my step over that I'm using is just 1 inch because it makes the math easy. The G code is really simple. It's move the X 60.2, move the Y over 1 inch, and move the X back to 0, and just rinse and repeat over and over. I'm just watching to make sure the hose that I've got hooked up doesn't get jammed on anything right now. Part of this is so that I can see what I need to do for the vacuum hose, and I'm flattening my table. So this is the dry run, so I'll just let it run through and see how well it does. Thankfully, with the overhang, I don't have to do any ramping, because it goes off past the bit. The bit goes off past the edge, and it can drop down the Z right there if it needs to. I think, just keeping an eye on things here, I think the very center of the table is the lowest point, from what I can tell with my rudimentary straight edges and stuff. So I set my Z to that, and I'm just going to run a pass at 0, so I don't take too big of a bite with the bit. It's a 1.25 inch. It's from Milwaukee. It was it's a dishing, like a hinge mortising bit, so it does a good flat bottom. Definitely cannot plunge. The carbide only does about 1/3 of the diameter. There's nothing in the center, so there's no plunging. So we'll let this run. I'll keep track of the hose here, which may need my attention in a second. But so far it looks like it's running pretty good. What you're seeing, it's running at 200 inches per minute right now. I coded it for 100 inches, and then I bumped up the feed rate override a little bit, just to see how it does. I may run it back down at 100 inches when I'm really cutting, because face it, I'm not in any rush. The dry run can run faster than the actual cutting for all I'm concerned about. Then again, it may run fine, and I'll stick with 200. So we're at 21 inches so far, and that's 22. It's going to go to 28.5. And so far it looks like it's doing pretty well. Okay, pretty good. I think it can cut. Okay, so this is the first run. I ran it at Z0. I set my 0 point right here. I don't know if you can see from there. I'm going to zoom in a second. Two very cool things. One, this 0 point wasn't bad. It probably was a little bit lower over here, but overall it was a pretty good guess of where 0 was. Secondly, the dust collection I have to say was fantastic. I shot another video of the dust collection and it was really good. I tried to talk over it, but everything was running, so it was probably way too loud. You probably couldn't hear me. But I'll post another video of just how well the dust collection boot or shoe or whatever performed. It performed incredibly well. I haven't waited. This was 10 seconds after the router shut off. There is no dust cloud at all. It got, I don't want to say it got all of it, but I think it got all of it. One problem, however, and I'm not sure you can see this from here, but my router is tipped over just a little bit to that direction. I'm going to pull the camera down and I'll show you what I'm seeing. I got to fix it before I do the next pass because otherwise I'm just going to have ridges. I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so you see how these lines, they're clear here, but there's still some left behind here. That tells me the router bit is tipped over a little bit. It's not perfectly square or flat, because if it was, this would be a flat surface like this here. This actually isn't. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a ridge right there, and that's like all of this. You can see the striping. That's all those little ridges. It's not very much. It's maybe, gosh, it might be a thou, might be 2 thou tops. I can barely feel it, but you can see it's leaving a lot behind. You see here, there's some more. There's a lot of it sort of left behind. So I'm going to have to fix that, but it should be a fairly easy fix. I knew I was going to have to do this anyways, but yeah, here's a good example of all of the little ridges left behind. They're not very tall, but they're enough to bother me, so I'm going to fix that first. But anyway, that's what I've got.